am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. And today, it's just going to be me. We are going to talk about feelings and how we handle those feelings throughout times of stress, throughout times that are good, and recognizing how those feelings even have come to be in our lives. So the whole point of this podcast is about our belief systems and how we got those belief systems, what actually transpired in our lives, and how we step back and look at those stories and maybe see how those stories have affected us throughout our lives and how we deal with our feelings, and in times of stress, what we need to do to really see if the way that we are handling ourselves is the way that we were programmed to, or was it something that was we actually determined is the way we wanted to handle it. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately because I know, I interview so many different leaders in so many different professions and understand their stories of maybe how their belief systems came to be and how that affected them as adults. And I know in my own life, there's been definitely times in my life that have affected how I moved forward and how I've dealt with stress, or times where maybe I was feeling things, but not necessarily allowing myself to feel things. And one of those times in my life that affected me for so many years was when I was young. I was in high school, and my mom lost her business. And I think, when we look at our lives right now with the pandemic and so forth, there's things that you just can't predict what the future looks like. And it was the same thing at that time in my life, where we had a certain type of family life, a certain type of spending patterns, and what we were used to. And my parents got divorced, and their credit had been maxed at that time. And from some decisions that my mom had made in the business failed as well. And everything in our lives changed from that point going forward. And there was no vision of what the future was going to look like. And I think that's a really hard thing to get your head around sometimes when, things are so different. They're not the way that you're used to it. And you can't ever say that they'll go back to the way that it was. And at that time in my life, my parents were not going to get back together. We lost our house. We lost everything inside of our house because of the financial turmoil, and had to sell even everything in the house to people in a house sale just to start paying off some of the credit and issues that were happening from the business. And I started working 3 jobs at the time. My brother started working as well, all to contribute to the things that we needed to do in order to make it through the rest of high school and going into college. Now, having had that experience, when you're going through hard times, and I've been thinking a lot about that lately because of how hard these times are, you have to have some sort of like, this can't be forever, gonna have to push forward. I mean, you really have this moment where you think about, do I give up and just, hide under the covers, or do I keep pressing forward, not knowing what the other side looks like? And you have to make the intentional decision to do that. And while you're doing it, sometimes you can't feel anything because there's just no feelings about it. Like, I know at that time, I couldn't feel. I didn't have time to think about my feelings, how it was affecting me. All I knew was I needed to survive, and my family needed to survive. And so we were just doing everything we could to make it through. And I had the goal of going to college, wanted to still go to college. So I just kept pressing through and kept my head down, because if you really start thinking about everything that's going on around you, it can take you down. Now, one of the things that, when I reflect back on that and compare to the times that we are in today, one of the errors that I made was to not feel. And that became a pattern in my life for a long time of just making sure, just got to make it to the next step, just got to make it to the next step, and keep my head down and make sure that I didn't feel anything, because if I felt it, it might just hurt too much. And I wasn't sure where that pit, how far it would go. And so I just didn't allow myself to think about it. And it wasn't until in my 30s when I started doing yoga and really doing some different types of things that I had never done before, where it was forcing me to actually look at how I feel and sit with it and allow myself to go through those feelings, to go through any grieving of times that I lost or things that I pushed forward and did. And maybe those were the right decisions for the time, but not necessarily the right decisions or the same decisions that I would have made had all else been different. So I wanted to talk about this today because we might be in that spot where we're trying to push forward, we're working, we're running on that treadmill to keep things going, which we need to do. But I do think we need to feel and allow those emotions to come when they come and allow them to flow through us as they need to. Now, sometimes we have to put guardrails around it because we don't want it to overwhelm us or be a tidal wave. But it is important that we don't shove those feelings down as we're going through it too, because what we don't want to do is have this impact the people around us in ways, our families, or change the way we are as a person if it's for the worst. So we can evaluate, right? Like, maybe there's learnings from all of this where we've actually learned something really good about ourselves and that we want to keep. But maybe there's things that are happening that we might notice a change in our personality or the way that we interact, that we may want to pause and evaluate, is that the person that we want to be? Because if you allow those things to go on for too long, even if it's just out of sheer fear and anxiety and stress, it can start becoming who you are. And you don't want to lose the essence of the type of person that you want to show up for in life, the type of person that you believe you are. And if what that means is you have to take a pause and feel and allow yourself those moments to be sad, those moments to grieve if you need to grieve, but also those moments to look at what opportunities and good things that have happened because of this as well. Now, I know a lot of times what we talk about as far as trying to change your feelings is to not think negatively, right? To think from a gratitude perspective. I've also been thinking about this as well, because sometimes gratitude might be a strong word when our feelings are so hard and we don't want to pretend we have more gratitude now. It can change our energy to think about what we're grateful for. Absolutely. But one of the things we can practice is actually how do we support our heart and protect it during these times as well? That we might be feeling so much that opening our heart or trying to think of something more positive might be too much. That might create too much emotion within us, rather than thinking about our heart space and understanding, what do we need? What does that heart space need right now? And if it needs protection and if it needs support, be okay to admit that, rather than trying to pretend that you can go it alone or you don't need anyone to help or you got this. That allowing your heart and your feelings to be supported during this. So, and we have to track back, right? And look at those belief systems that created that. That if we've always believed that we don't need anyone or we don't want to owe anyone, which was definitely me, because I bootstrapped it. I wanted to make it on my own and show that, you know, my circumstances weren't going to get in the way of the goals that I had and so forth. And it took me a long time to understand of how much I did need that support of people and supporting my heart in ways that I did not expect, where, you know, it can be mindfulness practices or yoga practices, or, you know, even if it's a hobby that helps fill that heart space to support it, but it's something that fills it up where you don't feel like you've got to do it alone. I would even say, as a leader, when we need to be supported, sometimes we have to speak up, sometimes we have to be transparent, that we can't always do it alone. And we are going through things that maybe not everyone understands because they're not seeing all the aspects of the business or what you are, the services that you're responsible for, the jobs you're responsible for, and all the different decisions that go into it, and how many hard decisions have to be made right now. And as a business owner, as a leader, there's never been a harder time of no prediction of what that future looks like for your business or for the services that you offer or the products that you offer. It's unprecedented because we can't sit back and business plan. All we can do is look at, I can make a plan for what I know today. But in order to do that, we can ask for support. And our heart, our feelings, we can be transparent about how we are feeling. And when we are, the way people will reach out and help, if we allow them to, creates gratitude, creates that space of, wow, I am not alone in this. And that takes work. And if it's something hard for you to do, to actually speak up and be transparent about your feelings, or let somebody know that you need something, and it could be a spouse that you need to let know, it might not be someone at work, and maybe you're not used to letting your spouse know, or a significant other, of the kind of support to your heart that you need, then, you know, this is the time to maybe understand why. What created that for you? And when we can better understand why, then we can just take one little step, one toe in the water, and speak up and try it with one person or someone that you feel safe with. And even say, I feel really uncomfortable. I've never done this before, but these are hard times and I am actually feeling sadness or I'm feeling scared about the work that I do or the life that I have, and I need your support. And this is how I need it. Now, with my businesses, you know, it's been a really important opportunity to sit with each of the teams and be very transparent about where the state of the business is and what we need to do as a team in order to survive these times, because we don't know how long these times go. And we certainly don't know what the future will look like. And it probably will not look like where we left off in March. So knowing that, and knowing that I don't have all the answers, even if I want to, and knowing that I have a lot of feelings welling up inside of me over not knowing those answers, then it's important that I tell people I need your support and ask for their support. And when you open that up, when you come in open-hearted to say, I need protection, I need support, it's amazing how people will step up to help you in that situation. And some of the best ideas come from those opportunities that you allow other people to support you, but also to participate in the solution as well. Because everybody's got a different perspective. And typically, at least in all of my career life, if someone's dedicating time to their job or to work for you or to work for your business, they most likely want it to do well because they're a part of it and they're a part of contributing to the success of it. So if you don't give them the opportunity to try to help, they can feel a little upset as well that their feelings weren't considered, their contribution wasn't considered, or just the fact that they could help come to a solution with you. And all of you can support one another. But as part of doing that, it's important to understand from a business perspective and a leadership perspective, when I talk about my story that I walk in with, that I hold in my body, that I have to overcome, everybody that comes into that room is holding their stories, holding how they respond to things, creating those fears and anxieties because of their stories in the past. And it's important as leaders or running businesses, understanding that we're not alone, that everybody that is working with us is feeling that fear, that anxiety, and having those stories of what is creating that fear and anxiety as well. And the hardest thing to do is to sit and understand what's happening for them, why they might be feeling fear and anxiety, and what's contributing to that as well. What are their feelings? And being open to what those feelings are. And that's the mindfulness practice of not judging the feelings, not judging what they say, and not applying how we feel to what they say, but actually just being present and silent and compassionate to their journey so that they can be silent and present and compassionate to our journey. And when we start putting that into practice, we become human. And that's what feelings are all about, is that sometimes we have to put up this armor in our day to get through the day or to get through different things that we're disputing so that we get certain goals that we want or certain initiatives to go the way that we want. But at the end of the day, we are human with feelings, and each person walks around like that. And when we think about how do we protect each person's heart in these situations and make sure they feel whole, that they feel protected, that they feel nurtured. And how can we ask to feel protected and nurtured as well? Then we're in it together and we're supported and we allow ourselves to feel. And what can come from it is not only closer relationships with one another, but what also can come from it is opportunities that maybe we didn't discover on our own. We discovered it because we were all together, contributing together, being human together, feeling our feelings together. So what I'd like to do to end this is just take a moment and really just be silent with ourselves. And maybe pick a word or an emotion that you're feeling, but feeling where you're kind to your heart, that you're supported, and really wrapping your mind just around that theme. And I'd like you to close your eyes and just settle into the space where you are. So if you're sitting in a chair, just taking both feet to the earth, maybe bringing your hands on your thighs. And what I'd like you to do is to really sit tall. So maybe you're feeling supported on the back of your chair. And noticing your body. Noticing whether it feels heavy where you sit. Noticing how you are supported. And I'd like you to take your right hand on your heart and bring your left hand on top of your heart. And just notice as you breathe in and out, your heart being supported. And maybe just slow down that breath as you inhale and exhale. And maybe settle into the space. And notice any words that come up for you around how you feel. Or you might notice any energy or color that might come up for you as you continue to breathe into that heart space. Just knowing that you are enough, that you are supported, that you're allowed to feel. And you're being kind to yourself in order to be better for yourself, so you can be better for those around you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.